The rise of the Muslim population demographic bomb. Hello, this is Chart GPT today. You know, we have a lot of goings on in the Middle East now, and of course a lot of the focus is on the Israeli Hamas, which is a little bit of a Judeo-Christian versus the Muslim. So we thought, well, let's take a look at what are the Muslim population and the demographics that going around the world could be, even in the US, EU, etc., etc. Of course, this harkens back to in the 2011 when Colonel Gaddafi said he was going to plan to flood Europe with migrants as a final revenge, kind of a demographic time bomb, so to speak. Well, has that come about? Well, somewhat, some perhaps not. Let's take a look at the numbers here. So it is true that by 2060 here, Christians and Muslims around the world will be equal, pretty much. And you see that rise from 24% to 31%. So that's a significant rise on a global basis. You can see where most of that is coming from, mostly North Africa, in Central Africa partially, and obviously in the Mideast states, as well as in Asia. So those are rising demographics in those areas. In specifics to Europe, Germany, France, and UK lead the way in terms of having accepted immigration from these areas, and so they're getting to be 5, 10, 15% of their population, and they will have a vote. So that will sway politics, obviously. Here's a little bit more interesting about American Muslims. It's still fairly small, about 1%, 2%, something, but by 2050 it should be around 2 to 3%. Some people think this is a low number. There's a lot more that we just don't know about because there's so many immigrants coming into the U.S. now, we just don't know who they are. Nevertheless, they seem to be focused in these particular areas. Some in Arizona, believe it or not, some Texas, but Illinois and Minnesota and Michigan and New York, New Jersey area. So these is where this is mostly concentrated, but that's 2020, and I think that's changing slowly. Anyway, that's where it is in the U.S. Now, some of the attitudes towards immigration, you know, you say, well, has the people wanted this? By and large, most of the people in Europe has agreed with it. Now, I don't know if that's going to be changing soon, but for now, in the past recent history, they've agreed to this immigration. In the U.S., it depends. It depends if you're a Democrat or Republican. Republicans not so much. Democrat, yes. You can see the political ideologies of Muslims versus the identification. It's by far favoring the Democrats. So when we look at the future, the face of immigration, what will it be? It will be people of color, because that's where most of the migration is coming from, because that's where the majority of the population is, and it'll be non-Christian and predominantly Muslim. You can see this in the makeup here. Christian, I think, and this is probably going to be shrinking over time. You can see where the source of all the immigrants will come from. You know, Central America, yes, and South America, but those are kind of drying up recently. And more and more are coming from Africa, yes, China and India, and some of the Islamic states. So again, immigration coming into America and Europe will be mostly people of color and Muslim. Of course, are people fighting back, or should they be fighting back? Well, the recent Dutch election, what they call far right, I guess they define far right as immigration status, which isn't necessarily far right, but nevertheless, they seem to call it that way. And basically, a new Dutch election is basically one on immigration. They want to stop the inflow. So there could be a sea change in some of these numbers. So these numbers are predicted on current political paradigm, but maybe not in the future. Take a look at their AI and see what it says about some of the highest Muslim population in the highest growth areas. And take an online poll. Will the rising Muslim global population present new issues for the world? Is it overhype, or perhaps it will be a problem? Give us your take. You can find that in the post link in the description box below. And don't forget to subscribe.